Hi, my name is Don Loomis. Been around the home improvement industry since 1986. Retail for 4 years, distribution for 8 years, manufacturing for 20 plus years. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time about windows. It's a great home improvement. It's very important for the consumer. Normally by building code, 20-25% of your home is windows and doors. So it's really always a good product to consider for your home. We're going to talk about this window today, and when you talk about windows, you have three substrates or materials they're made out of. There's wood, of course, which has been around for hundreds of years. There's metal, which was very popular in the 50s and 60s and is still used in some environments down in the South and Texas and that kind of thing. And then there's vinyl. Vinyl has been in the industry since in America since about 81 or 82 is when it really entered the market. In the European market, somewhere in the early to mid 70s, it got started. One of the things that vinyl does over wood is obviously its longevity. Wood has a lot of issues with expansion and contraction, and it has to be maintained and all those types of things. When you talk about metal's not any good for this environment up here, even though there are a number of communities that were built in the 50s and 60s with metal frame windows, and metal frame windows are no good in this climate up here. Vinyl, however, is very cool because it's pretty easy to work with, and especially in today's manufacturing environment, you can manufacture it very easily to custom sizes. But along with that, thermally wise, you've got opportunities to make the product much more thermally efficient, much more productive when it comes to the hot and cold transfers in the home. And you do not have to put up with all the expansion, contraction, and maintenance that you do with a wood window. When you talk about the advent of vinyl windows in the early 80s, first types of vinyl windows were actually pretty cheaply made because we were just getting into it. Then a lot of the technology came over in the mid to late 80s and from the European market. And in the European market, they built some very large products. And so what we saw during those times was in the 80s and into the early 90s, some windows that were very well constructed, meaning they were just some massive, what they call extrusions. And when I say extrusions, this right here is an extrusion, and there's an extrusion here, an extrusion here. We're going to talk about the manufacturing process later on, but the extrusions were really, really big, and both in the sash and the mainframe part. Well, what would happen is very strong product compared to the early ones in the 81 through 84 variety, but the big deal was it lost a lot of glass space. So this product that we're looking at here today, this was designed by a gentleman and a couple of his also workers he was with. He came from a company that was building massive extruded windows, and he started his own gig in 1995. And when he started, he really went after the idea that vinyl windows were very, very cool. The consumer had changed the marketplace overnight. This was an opportunity to change it again in another way. When you talk about vinyl windows, 81, 82, it owned about 3% of the market. By 92, it owned 60-some% of the market. So vinyl windows had really become popular with consumers as well as builders and all that. But again, these extrusions were so massive and so big, the glass was missing all of a sudden. You had a lot of vinyl and a little bit of glass. This guy decided, hey, let's see how we can make the window perform very, very well and do really good things and yet still provide glass. There's an old saying, windows should be looked through, not at. So kind of a neat little phrase there. But the truth is, when people look out the window, they really don't want to always look at the sides of it. They want to look through the glass and be able to see the outside and have the outside come in and share with them. This particular design is a little bit more unique. Number one, overall, when you compare to most of the market that's still there here in 2023, they are still providing some 25% average glass. 25% more glass. Now, when you live in the Midwest, we do have 7 or 8 months of really nice weather, whether it be late spring, summer, into the falls. But there are 4 to 5 months every year where it becomes very cloudy and very dark around here. The last thing you want is to put new windows in your house and have the glass shrink significantly. Still today in the industry, when the windows get installed, they use what they call a frame-and-frame installation. What that really means is if you have a wood window and a couple sashes in it, what's going to happen is the dealer, contractor, whoever it is going to come in there, is going to remove the sashes, going to leave a lot of the framework in place to avoid overworking the opening, and they're going to put in this window which has its own framework here as well as it has its own operating sash. So it's a frame-and-frame system. Very good system, works very well. There are other methods that are being used today besides that, but that's still the bulk of how a vinyl window gets installed in the house. So let's take a minute and take a look at this particular product. If we took a look at a regular design vinyl window, we're going to see a couple things with it. One is, again, going back, a lot of times the frames are pretty thick. Also, the exterior of the window it's going to have a very sharp edge to it. It's going to be almost in a square-like or maybe a slight angle to it, all right? That's very much would be considered, I guess, if you wanted to, European-like design. It still is stuck in that mode of very little contours to it or anything like that. When this window got started, one of the things you'll notice, and if you can focus in a little bit, is this dual radius contour on the outside. When this was designed, there was nobody in the window industry doing anything like this. To the point where the manufacturer actually got a patent on it. Now, that's kind of unique in a business that some people consider a commodity, but to have the first extrusion that had its own patent besides the idea of making vinyl extrusions was pretty cool. Now the patent, as they do, has run out, but today there is still, some 27 years, 28 years later, there is still no manufacturer of vinyl windows today that has copied this, and it's for a couple of reasons. Number one is there is some additional expense in putting beautiful design. You know, this guy that started this company, he's a Midwest kid like myself, and here in the Midwest, we have a ton of wood manufactured products. In the state of Wisconsin, there's 5 wood manufacturers themselves, and throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, you're talking some of the biggest places for wood windows being manufactured. So a lot of pride that goes in the house on the initial new construction is still wood windows today. And the look is a certain look. It has a lot of shadow lines to it. It has a lot of contours. The wood has been milled, so it's very beautiful. Well, this looks more, once it's installed from the exterior, it looks more like a wood window than anyone. So really what we're going to focus on for a few minutes is not just the framework and more glass. We're going to focus on the aesthetics for a little while. One of the things they did was design a very beautiful screen, but more importantly, they took, and if you'll notice right here, this sill has a little slope to it. All right? When you build and manufacture or fabricate, whatever you want to call it, a vinyl window, one of the ways you can do it very economically is you can take this piece right here and you can put it on all 4 sides, and then you just add a few things to get the water to transfer away from the home and transfer back outside. Well, the problem right away you get into is, look at the thickness of this extrusion versus this extrusion. Pretty extreme in its depth. So these folks decided, hey, how about if we were able to create more of a flat sill or a slightly sloped sill, very much like a wood window. If you look at a wood window, sashes come down, that exterior sill is sloped down about 7 degrees. This is a very similar slope to it. And then just put a couple of weep holes on the edges here. So right away, we've lessened the amount of vinyl at this point, let alone side to side. We've lessened the vinyl here by quite a lot and increased the glass size. The whole concept was, let's get that window installed, and we wouldn't want the window to be new vinyl windows in the house. We want the windows to be new windows in the house. That conversation is very important, whether it's a consumer, a dealer, whoever it is, that the windows look like they were supposed to be there. And that's really what we were after when this was designed. Real quick, on the screen here, it's kind of unique. And this, I'm taking a moment here on the side. This screen is what we call an extruded screen. We'll talk about it in a minute, but it also is what they call pinned down. So there's a metal frame in here. So this screen doesn't have any flex to it. A lot of screens are held together just through the spline. And again, we're going to talk about this later, but this screen is actually a frame in frame itself. So very nicely designed screen. Once in a while, when you see somebody take that much time with the screen, you might think that they're doing some really cool stuff with the window. Okay, let's come to the inside. Now, one of the things about this particular manufacturer is, you notice the window was white on the outside. We take a look at this, well, geez, what is this? This is what they call a wood grain window. So, what's been done is the extrusion, and we'll take a side moment here, the extrusion is white all the way through, but they've added a thin skin of material. That is a vinyl skin laid on there through a thermatic process that has a picture of wood on it. So very well designed. It's about 7 mils in thickness, very strong. And what it does is it creates a look that simulates wood. Now I will tell you that a lot of times people will put this window in the opening, and the old sashes were so beat up, they put this in, they go, holy cow, that looks so much more like wood, they can't believe it. So these guys are very dedicated, this manufacturer is very dedicated to having options for the consumer, and in fact they do offer, and I'm going to take a minute here because I believe I have it right over here. This particular manufacturer offers more options than any manufacturer really. When it comes to the wood grains, they offer multiple wood grains, including a very popular black now, and they also do offer one that you could get and paint or stain on your own, and of course there's the typical white and tan that's available. Exteriorly, the color options are almost endless because they use a great paint system, which has become popular in the industry, but their paint system is just outstanding. They're using they're using a thermatic system. They're heating up the extrusion once it's been painted so that the paint bonds very, very well. So you really have almost endless choices, including custom colors on the outside. And on the inside, 6-7 different wood grains as well as a paintable, stainable. So you really get a chance to make your window look whatever you want. The finish on here is, it's got a clear coat on there and it really holds up. You can, give you kind of an example. Let's see here. Let me open these up for a second. So you can hang away at this. If you were here to feel it, there'd be nothing broken, no damage here. When you tilt the window in for cleaning, you can pop it back together. Again, no damage on the edges. So really a great design. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, when we say aesthetics, now we're looking at the interior of the window, correct? Very cool stuff going on here. Number one is, going back to where we talk about the old style extrusion. The old style extrusion, this piece right here would have a very precise bend in it, very much a 90-degree bend. While it's still a 90-degree bend, they took the time to round this down, make this look a little bit more subtle. Even the sash component itself, instead of it having a very abrupt 90-degree bend, it's been rounded down a little bit. In the manufacturing or fabrication process, the insulated glass, which is a very important part of the window obviously, is actually made in a different part of the building, and then it's brought to the fabricated sash, that's applied into it. It's held in what we call glazing beads. So now if you can see in here, if you can see this seam right here, and here, in here. You can see that seam. That seam is actually a true seam. This piece here is separate from this piece here. This is what we call a glazing bead. It helps hold the insulated glass unit in place. Most glazing beads are very square. They're very abrupt. This one has been rounded and contoured very much like the exterior of the window, but again, more like what they call an OG molding. An OG molding would be some kind of molding that has some design or millwork to it. Again, to make it look more like a wood window. If you go and look at wood windows, this is what they have. There's a lot of millwork pieces and stuff like that to it. They took the time to actually design a lift rail that again has contours, real subtle. And then during the manufacturing process, the edges are cleaned up so there's no sharp edges. It's a very beautiful look and makes for a nice ergonomic operation, both on the bottom as well as operating the top. One of the other things they do, wood windows will take, because their material is designed, it allows them to mortise in the lock. That means drop the lock down so it's flush. Most vinyl window manufacturers do just the opposite. They kind of set the lock here on top, and it's very obvious that it's there. It can be seen. The other thing it does is it does allow for the lock keeper to be seen, which can allow for possible security issues as far as being able to run a knife or something up in there and tap on the lock and get it to open up. Can't do that with this one because it's hidden down below. So you do get a security measure out of having the lock mortised in. This window, like many windows in the industry today, tilts in for cleaning. That means if I have the window in place, installed, if I wanted to clean the window, I raise it up just a little bit, lay it down, first level, see, now I can operate here, and take the next one down, same thing, pull it down. So on a double lung window, and that's what this design is, it's called a double lung because both sashes operate, it's two lung, allows you for easy cleaning. They did take the time to use a very nice tilt latch system. It's, while noticeable, the thing that's most important about it is very easy to operate. Doesn't matter what your age is. It could be a very helpful 12-year-old young person around the house who wants to help clean their windows, or you can be 72 and your fingers with a little bit of arthritis in them can still get at the tilt latch and they can operate correctly. So really good stuff there. One of the things, and we'll talk about this, the reason why later on, but wood windows, vinyl windows have a tendency to have a sash stop in them right here, meaning that what happens is the sash gets about this far up and it retards the travel of the sash. There's a reason for that, and it's all about the internal operational pieces, but on this one, you don't have that because they use a much more quality balance system, the operational system, but also by taking it away, it looks, again, more like a wood window. And the other thing is, going back to what we're looking for a lot more glass, but we're also looking for a lot more ventilation at times of the years. So this allows you to get full ventilation out of this double lung window. We talked about the slope sill from the outside. Look how nice and low profile this is on the interior. Just absolutely beautiful. So all you're really seeing is just a slight rise at that opening. And when you get the window installed and the internal stool board is right here, it actually runs right about here. So you really don't notice that it's in a frame-in-frame window. Overall, this whole product, its real true story is about performance and all that kind of stuff, because that's what vinyl windows, if you're going to get new windows, should do. But one of the side bars you get with this, it's been designed for a particular reason to look more like a traditional window in the house. Even these extrusions here, narrower. These profiling here, narrower. One of the things that with the big bulky windows was internally it had a lot of massive structure to it. Well, when you look at this, you might say this might not be as strong. I can tell you from being in the manufacturing side of the business that typical vinyl window like this, what they call a double hung window certain size, a 3060 or 3050, I should say, meaning 3 feet wide and 5 foot high. We'll have in the vinyl category, the amount of vinyl we'll have it somewhere between 16 to 18 pounds if it's a well manufactured product. The cheaper ones will have 12, 13 pounds. But this product still has that 16 to 18 pound category, even though the extrusions are narrow. What they did was they went on the inside where you can't see it, and they added thicker extrusion pieces, and they also added what they call more fluting, so there's more structure to it. And when you do these little designs like here, rolling it off, outside here, doing the double contour radius, they really allows you to pick up some strength. Just like anything, take a piece of paper flat and hold on to it, it's going to fold down like this. When you put some structure to it, all of a sudden you can hold a piece of paper straight up. Same thing with a vinyl extrusion. So while aesthetically pleasing and much prettier than any other vinyl window in the marketplace, it also has a huge amount of strength based off of the design itself. So, okay, I think that kind of covers the whole idea of aesthetics, and you also got a little flavor for where we're going to go next, which will be design and how the mechanics of the window work and all those types of things.